So leaving the military was a big culture shift back into civilian life. And I always discounted the word culture when it came to major corporations in my work life. It was like re-engineering or being lean or having something in your DNA. It just kind of seemed like a cliche, but as a business owner and an executive of a nonprofit building community, I now realize how big culture is. And the culture of the military is very task-driven. If you look under the hood, it's extremely people-driven, but on the surface, it's very task-driven. I think that a lot of people buy into that, and that's hard when you come back into a corporation and you're having this big culture shift. You've got to understand where these other individuals that you're working with, this team that's adopting you, how do they function, how are you going to adapt to that, and where do you fit in, or where do you need to work on some things, and how do you bring value to that? And that's one of the things that we try to do with Lone Star Veterans Association, the veteran community, is open up this alumni network, this huge, vast contact network of 300,000 people here in Houston, so that when you're looking, you find those opportunities that you didn't know existed. So I'm here today to tell you about the power of community, what it can do for your business, and how to leverage the experiences the military has given me personally into building communities inside the veterans and small business communities here in Houston, Texas. With the Lone Star Veterans Association, we were started to fulfill a need of Iraq and Afghan vets that just weren't really getting served as they were coming home from the military and from combat situations in 2009. Over the past 10 years, we've grown and evolved and built out a 10,000 person membership base here in Houston. We're the largest membership group for veterans here in Houston. The most important thing is the mission. The most important thing is this community and our members. And so we're combining with Combined Arms, an agency that's data-driven and focused on connecting veterans to resources, on accelerating the impact of veterans on Houston. And so together, we will be sunsetting the LSVA brand name, but that's okay. All the same program is going to continue, but with much more power and resources and activity to build out a comprehensive alumni network, not just in Houston, but throughout this state and throughout the country. So as you move for work, you're not just dropped off in the new city and hoping that your company has a great employee resource group, or you took a job with a new startup or a small business and you're hoping to get plugged into an innovation ecosystem, but that there is a veteran community, an alumni network from top to bottom, from private to general, that's ready to welcome you with open arms, pull your family in, get you connected, and make sure that there is a no-gap solution as you move between cities, between jobs, and between industries, that you're never alone, that you're always part of our family, and together we're always lifting each other up and pushing each other to do greater and greater things. Houston actually has the second largest military community, veteran community in the entire country. There's 300,000 veterans here in Houston. Of that, 2,500 to 3,500 are moving to Texas, to Houston every year. That's a huge opportunity, and it's a huge task for us to reintegrate those folks and put them to work. And right now, Houston doesn't have a veteran unemployment problem, we have an underemployment problem. And building out your network, understanding the opportunities that are in front of you, and what you can do to leverage your prior experience from the military into your new civilian career is a huge opportunity and a huge task that we bear. So inside the 300,000 veterans here locally in Houston, about 50 to 55,000 are what we consider the post 9/11 generation. These are veterans and their families that left the service after the towers fell. Now these are typically 25 to 45-year-olds. There's some older retirees, but typically they fall within that range of 3 to 6 years of military service. These are really great entry-level positions. Somebody that has 3 to 6 years of military service is well positioned to take on a new career, transitioning from one industry to another, at the same time as having a solid bedwork of discipline, timeliness, sense of purpose. You don't join the military just so you can get rich, right? Nobody's getting rich off of joining the military. You're going to a higher calling. You're putting service before self and country before self. And these are the type of individuals that do amazing things. Usually what I see when veterans are getting hired is people want that timeliness. They want that discipline. They want that grit. The challenge I often see is it's the development plan, the talent development. How are they going to be matured? What is the career pathway? Are they going to be compensated equivalent? Right? Coming out of the military, Your pay grade isn't necessarily what you're worth on the open market. And trying to get veterans to understand what their worth is, the opportunity set, and how to translate their prior experience of running small teams, the leadership professionalism that comes into all these different things, is a really soft skill that they have to be able to sell in a very intentional way. It's something that employers are looking for. Employers spend tens of thousands of dollars every year, sometimes on an individual, just trying to develop their leadership chops. And here are individuals that have led in combat or led in high intense, pressure-driven situations that training can't be replicated in the civilian world. So these are huge opportunities for corporations to get veterans into their team and leverage what the military has instilled into them. Inside of your corporation, when you're leading these teams, you want to be able to leverage your employees. You want your employees to be your brand ambassadors as much as a volunteer leader that I use or a high-paid consultant. Your employee base is a huge opportunity for resource referrals, for new leads for your business, for additional recommendations for new hires. Your team is your greatest untapped asset, but you got to get to know them and you got to get them bought in on the vision. The veterans entered the military service to serve their country. They were bought into a vision. They understood their role inside of it. You have to do the same thing inside of your company. If they don't understand where this thing's going, how they play into it, and what they are and are not allowed to do, they're never going to fulfill their full potential, and your business is always going to just stagnate. In Houston, we have this huge gap, and I think that the veteran community can really plug that gap as we have so many people, 2,500, 3,500 moving here each year looking for work, coming to Houston ready to fill that gap. We have an opportunity inside of energy, technology, innovation to fill these gaps and really grow as a community and a workforce. But to do so, we have to leverage our military experience. 80% of all jobs are found through interpersonal networks. That's the Department of Labor statistics. So I know as a small business owner, it's challenging to find good talent. You have all these different online resources, staffing companies. There's a lot of things that can either waste your time or waste your money. The best experience I've had, because I've made multiple veteran hires inside of my company, have been because of networking. Going out to events that are targeted at veterans in career transition and working that myself. And that's not the answer that everybody wants. Everybody wants to send a job application or a job description over and just get a talent funnel. And that doesn't happen. For major corporations that have 50 or 75 openings, that can happen because there's just such a wide range of talent. Everyone's chomping at the bit to work with you. But when you're a small business, it's harder. And it really does require you getting out there and building those connections. But I'll tell you that the hires I have made through that were the best hires I had. I'm a big believer that your network is your net worth. Inside of that, when we look at the veteran community, they're so broad, it's so diverse. You can't paint us all with one brushstroke. So you just never know what you're gonna get when you network, but you gotta be open, you gotta be available, and you gotta know what you bring to the table. Building inclusivity is something that you have to intentionally do. Diversity is just a checkbox, but inclusivity is something that you have to actively pursue. And having it in your workplace makes you stronger. You want something that's gonna give a different group. You want personalities and teams that look at things from multiple perspectives. They're gonna identify the gaps, the weaknesses in your plans, and build up something stronger. And so by having someone inside the community, inside that company that could recognize the talent, the skills, and the experience of a military veteran, because they themselves had walked that path, they were able to expedite that individual's career, but also fill a gap that would have taken them a lot longer and been a lot more expensive to fill for that company. For our different demographics inside the veteran community, what we have tried to do is find these niche interest groups or affinity groups that appeal to something that's both socially or professionally highly identifiable, a lived experience that starts to define and identify who you are. So inside of Lone Star Veteran Association, we run affinity groups. We try to find those niche identities that veterans and our members use to define themselves. Inside of that, we found our spouse group, which is an underserved market of family members that often are overlooked with veteran services. And they're really about having this fun, casual, supportive atmosphere. So getting started in community outreach is really about the people. You're gonna need leadership. And whatever the leaders look like, that's what the group's gonna look like. So if you wanna have a veteran employee resource group, you better have some veterans at the helm. Inside of our model, what we look to do, because I would love to do interest groups for 15 different groups all at the same time. But if we don't build them up systematically, we'll never be able to juggle all the balls in the air. We have to start one at a time. So the way we do this is we look at a proof of concept event. I want to make sure that we get about 30 to 40 people to come out around something new. And we're going to need about 90 to 120 days of really good marketing, finding those marketing partners that are working inside the alternate identity group, not the veteran side, that we can bring in. We want to make sure that this proof of concept validates that this will work. We're seeking funding, attendance, and showcase that there's a market demand for what we're doing. If this proof of concept works, we go into our second phase where we're now looking for this minimum viable product. What are the times, the locations, the content that really appeals to this group that's going to drive a consistent engagement level? Who's the leaders that are going to be good enough to not just raise their hand but show up? Inside of starting something, you want to do a proof of concept. You want to validate this idea in as low of a threshold to cost and time and staff resources as you can. So for me, that might be, how do you get to one invoice? How do you get to one donor? How do you get to one volunteer? You need something that's going to prove that this is something valuable that you're going to do. And that way you can say, no, I don't want to do it, or yes, this is, before you commit major time, major money into it. For Lone Star Veteran Association, what that's meant is we'll do one event. We'll see if we can recruit a few people. We'll see if we can raise a little bit of money to cover the costs. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't, we've learned something, we move on to the next. In my business, that's usually inside of a different customer bases, marketing channels, or even sales channels. I want to know, is my e-commerce the best place to spend time, or is my B2B channel, is it having coffees, is it having lunches? And I want to systematically approach that so I figure out what works, what doesn't, so I invest my time, which is extremely limited in any organization of any size, but especially in a small business. And by bringing these groups together, what we've been able to do is expedite job placement. Somebody is, lost at a third round interview over here. Well, they can get placed over here because of the network that we built and the connectivity that we were able to do, and this connections, not just professionally, but socially as well, and where that can lead our community. So I hope this was helpful. We were able to cover employee resource groups, the proof of concept model of building community that can be used for doing ERGs, as well as just how to build social connectivity and networking at large inside the veteran community, and that you can use in any aspect. To learn more, please visit us with Combined Arms.